You're listening to Life Check Yourself with life coach, transformational leader, and dating and relationship badass, Marni Batista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important life and love issues you want to know about. So, if you're ready to life check yourself in your relationships, your career, and the areas of your life that matter most to you, and you're not afraid to be called out on your, stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
Life Check Yourself with Robbie Kramer. This one mistake is why you don't get asked out again. Ladies, welcome to Life Check Yourself. Shanae needs to check herself. Oh my God. We are talking about what can you learn from that crazy little program, The Bachelor. And oh my goodness. I'm here with Robbie Kramer.
Okay.
Chris Gillis is with Dr. Emily in Santa Teresa. They sent me a video. He is sadly missing these conversations. He's so jealous of you right now, Robbie.
I'm pretty, I was excited for this week's Bachelor because of this conversation.
Exactly, right? It's like, it makes the whole thing so much more enjoyable. So for those of you who don't know what we saw last week, just in the context of how this could be helpful for you. One of the things that I really want to talk about is this idea of vulnerability. And so in my, I did my research, Robbie, and a lot of what I was really seeing online and really coming up with from people's responses is this idea of like, what is the difference? And we talk about this all the time, but I really think it's just illustrated here so well. Is vulnerability and pouring out your soul, like all your deepest, darkest secrets, like your sob story. Are those things, first of all, the same? And then second of all, is it a turn on to a guy? So let's just first of all talk about like, what's the difference between being vulnerable and pouring out your soul and your sob story? Because we saw, oh gosh, why can't I remember her name?
The
girl,
Gaby.
Yes, Gaby. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Gaby with her mom. So, what was your take on that?
So I really like Gaby. I think she's cool. She's obviously a lot of fun.
Yes.
And I did like seeing a different side of her.
Yeah.
And I thought her vulnerability was a lot more, I could feel it more than the other one that he went on the date with. There was two that I felt like both of those conversations were like so contrived. They're
Yes.
like, all right, now first you do this part of the date and you have fun, then we're going to go to dinner and then you got to cry. Right?
Yes, that's what the internet's saying. They're like, God, could you mix up the formula like a little bit? Could you have the cry in the middle of the day instead of where there's the fake plastic food on the table? So
I felt like they were putting eye drops in for the girl who went before Gaby.
Yes.
I forget who it was.
I forget who she was too and what they were even talking about because the internet.
It was Mara, I think. Wasn't it Mara?
Yeah, yeah.
No, it wasn't Mara. It was the other one. He did the date with her where they went on the roller coaster and the pier.
Oh,
and then, right. And then they had the dinner and she was talking about some, they're like, now you got to be vulnerable, and she's talking about some shit and they're adding the music in, and I'm like, even with the music, it's still bullshit. It's like, I'm not buying this crap. And I just felt like it was forced, and like his response to it was like, yeah, I can really understand. I can really, feel, and so awesome that you're opening up. I really appreciate you opening up. It's like, it's not going to really happen in real life.
Well, it's not going to, but that's just it. Like real vulnerability is like, first of all, it's organic.
Right.
I think one of the things that people happen when they're dating, Robbie, is like, they get so in their head, right? And so there might be someone who's listening who's like, okay, I'm going to be feminine. I'm going to be flirty. I'm going to go in this. I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to like say something that feels vulnerable, right? And you get very strategic and contrived about it. And so I just want the headline to be like, vulnerable isn't like, don't tell the sob story of like, I had a client once who went on a date with a guy, and he was like, ended up talking about like how like two of his family members were like in prison or something like that. It was like on the first date, right? And she was just like, wow, like that's a lot. And
thanks for sharing.
Right? And she was like, oh my God, are you okay? And she started to get in. And here's what happens to ladies. And I bet guys do this too, with this sort of leaning or tendency is to start coaching, fixing, giving advice.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Right? So
I think
so carry on.
One thing I want to say, it's like, you don't do vulnerable, right?
Right.
And that's what they're doing on the show.
Yes.
They're like, now it's time to do vulnerable. Now you bring out the sob story about your mom, talk about someone who died. Like that's kind of what happened in the other one.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, vulnerable is a state of being. Right. And when it feels right to be in that place and you're both kind of, it's like walking into a dark room. It's a little bit scary. So one person goes first, the other person follows the other one in, and then you're both vulnerable and you like connect and it's organic and it like feels natural. Not like what they're doing on the show where they're like, it's vulnerable time, go do it. And then it just feels forced and lame. And one of the things that really screwed me up in my sort of dating journey was the first time I heard about this vulnerability thing. Is like, your power is in your vulnerability and you got to make yourself vulnerable. And, that way, she'll be attracted to you on a much deeper level, blah, blah. So I remember I went on this date and told this horrible story about my dog dying. Just like totally killed the vibe. She's like, why the fuck? Story, like we're having drinks and shooting pool. Like, why do I care about your dead dog? Like, and it's like when people get that sort of idea in their head, like I need to be vulnerable, and then they go and do it. It's just so bad. Like you're better off just not doing it.
Well, right. And vulnerability isn't a sob story or the worst thing that happened to you or whatever. It's something. I mean, vulnerable can be like, at the end of the date saying like, wow, I had a really great time with you. Like this was amazing. I would so love to do this again. That's vulnerable, right? That's vulnerable.
Super vulnerable. Anything that makes you a little bit uncomfortable or nervous or a little scared, like the other person's going to feel that vulnerability when you take that risk. Like, the most vulnerable thing that I coach my clients to do is like, just if you see a woman you want to talk to, doesn't matter where she is, just go talk to her, go be direct. And you're probably going to fall flat on your face. She's probably going to reject you, tell you it's a boyfriend, whatever. But it only takes one, right? It doesn't, like you got to score with every one. And that you don't think of that as like a vulnerable act, but it actually is, because you're like, well, here's my balls are on the chopping block. If you don't like me, I'm going to get rejected. So, the approach is vulnerable.
Exactly. So I think I really want to make that super clear, because there was just like, it was, the internet was just like, oh my God, like, and then people were like, oh, I've had all these losses in my life. And, like, and he's like, oh yeah, it sounds like you've had a lot of loss. Like, it's not finding the angle to make it seem like you've had a lot of loss or suffering. Okay. So then that goes to the second question, which is, in your case with the pool date, it was not a turn on. When you share your sob story, is that a turn on? Like at like the first, second date, like third date, is that a turn on?
When the situation that I was in?
Well, just generally speaking, like there's vulnerability that's a turn on, and then there's like sharing your deep, dark, losses or secrets. It's got to
be at the right time, right? Like if the conversation kind of naturally goes to something like death or something just, where you're talking about someone you miss, and then, maybe you start to tear up or something, and it's natural and it's organic, that's great. Like, you get to see a side of someone that you didn't really know existed. And that's, with Gaby's story, like, even though it was contrived and it was like, okay, talk about, something that makes you sad. We want to see this other side. Even though it was contrived, I still enjoyed seeing that other side of Gaby, because prior to that, I had only seen the jokester.
Well, right. And that was important for her character development, because we just saw her like rolling on the round.
Happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought it would never happen in real life. That sort of unfolding of it. It's just,
No.
And there's no rush.
Do you think she was friend zoning him because she was so playful and jokestery?
I think she was like kind of obsessed with him since coming on the show. Like she brought the pillow that said, "I'm going to sit on your face."
Oh yeah.
Her approach has been very like, like sex forward in a way, but also, mostly in a joking way. I don't know. Maybe I have a soft spot for her because I like, silly jokesters like that.
Yeah. No, and I thought I liked her too. I think the other thing that was really interesting is she's talking about like, having a boundary with a family member. And I think that there's people out there that are dating that, have made those decisions. Like, it's not healthy for me to speak to this person in my family, or I don't have a relationship with my dad right now. And I think that, or you might hear that from a dude that you're on a date with, and you can make up a lot of stories about that, right? Like, oh, they're not emotionally available. They have issues, da da da. And he sort of is like, you're over that, right? Like you're low. And also, I don't like the way. So here's the other thing that I don't think Gaby did well in terms of sharing her vulnerability. She was basically like, I have low self-esteem. She didn't say like, right. Oh, there was a time in my life where I didn't feel enough. And because of that, I, dated some real jerks. And for a while, I even thought, that was my fault. But I've been working on it. She was like, so you need to know something about me. I want to tell you something personal. I have low self-esteem. And he was like, are you, what? Are you like, are you working on that? Did you fix that? Right. So again, what's the nuance there?
Yeah, there's so many ways that you could share about what you're going through, and the words you choose are pretty important. And you don't have to present it like that, right? It's like, and I'll give another example of just like, if a guy's nervous to go up and talk to a woman and you're in a conversation, don't just stand there and be like, oh my God, I'm so nervous right now. Because what is she going to do with that information? She's going to be like, cool story. Like, that sucks. That's probably something you should go talk to your therapist about.
Exactly.
So it was kind of that moment. It's like, if you have low self-esteem, like okay, but you don't have to tell me that. Let me kind of get there on my own, and let me at least live in the illusion that you don't. And maybe I'll never think you do, because it's all in your head anyways.
Exactly. So it's like, if you just, this is a free piece of advice on Life Check Yourself. If you just had a big epiphany at therapy, maybe don't share it on the first date.
Maybe not. Totally.
I realized that my mom was mean to me. And so, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, sorry. I mean, that's fine. So I think it's really important to just like really look at like, what are the nuances that you're sharing yourself, and that there's a way to do it that creates connection. And there's a way, I call it leaking, right? Where you're just like, all of your shit is just coming out on the table. And of course the listener, whether you're, the guy or the girl, is going to be like, so you're over that, right? I mean, because in your brain, you're like, you're confident now, right?
Well, that becomes like a thing, for him potentially. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if eventually he doesn't give her a rose, and he now has an easy get out of jail free card. Like, yeah, I just felt like, maybe there was a confidence issue. He could totally bring that up as a reason why he lost interest.
Yep.
And there's nothing she could really say about that, or you're just stuck with that. Like, and then you're just stuck with like, oh man, I shouldn't have said that. That was a dumb thing to say, because he could just be totally fixating on that part and thinking, oh, I can't be with someone with low self-esteem, when it was never a problem until she brought it up.
Exactly. And even the conversation about, I don't speak to my person in my family. Again, I don't think that's like a first or second date conversation.
God, I forgot about that.
Right?
Yeah, that was bad. And he's basically, he's kind of, I felt his response to that was, I felt like that was a big red flag for him.
Yes, you could see he was like, oh God, I'm from Missouri. Like, I want to.
I'm close with my mom. I don't know. Like, I'm not going to have a mother-in-law. Maybe that'd be a good thing if you want to tell mother-in-law jokes. But it's, like, you never want to hear that like someone's just like cut out of someone else's life, because it says volumes about how they deal with conflict, right? Like, okay, I deal with conflict by just cutting people out, and red flag.
Exactly. And if that is, and there's lots of our listeners who've had to do that, right, for various reasons, right? That's a deeper conversation in the context of when someone knows you well, right? And there's like some backstory. It's not like, so here's 4 things you need to know about me. I have low self-esteem and I don't talk to my mom. right?
Like,
And
all right, see you later.
yeah, and I'm funny, right? Yeah, and
Right.
and it's amazing. And people will put, by the way, I think people put this shit in different various forms and formats online in their profiles.
Oh yeah.
Like, so, you think you're just being, upfront or whatever, but it's just sending out lots of messages. I think we've talked about this a lot, but like context, right? Like, you want to be authentic. You want to like make a good first impression in your authenticity. And then all your deep, dark secrets, they're not vulnerability, and you don't like put them out on the first date. That's what we learned from Clayton. By the way, the internet's really making fun of the ladies because they don't, they what do they say? They drop the T's. They don't say T. They call him Clayton. Clayton. And they're like, why can't these ladies speak? And then also someone said there's like a lot of shit about comfortable. I can't even say it, comfortability. I don't know. Some word. They're like, wow, these ladies aren't good at speaking. Okay, let's talk about this, Robbie. Number 2. Is Clayton boring? Like, or is it that he's just guarded? Because what sort of I was seeing online was like, and I think this happens in real life, boring hot guy syndrome.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I've worked with a lot of clients like this, and they're really good looking.
Yeah.
And they've always had it so easy when it comes to attraction. They're usually, way worse in bed than they think they are.
Right.
And because again, like they haven't really needed to, it's like when stuff comes really easy for you, why work on it?
Right? Exactly.
So, they were getting laid a lot in high school and college just because they were hot. But then as they get older and they're dating women of more substance who care more about just banging a hot guy, they start really dating way below what they feel like their league is but they're substanceless. They're just like empty vacuums of hot guy, and there's nothing there. And yeah, I do feel like that's happening a little bit with Clayton. Like even the comedian called him like vanilla, and one of the girls called him boring. Yeah, I mean I think he's somewhere maybe between like careful and possibly vanilla.
Yes.
It's hard. I think we talked about this last week, but that clip that they keep showing of, oh, I'm so broken, like that makes me cringe every time that they show it. And
wait, why does it make you cringe?
Just because I'm sure it's just such an over dramatic like thing to cover up some bullshit that he's gonna do.
Right.
Yeah, he's gonna like have sex with a few of the women and then blame it on the fact that he's broken. Like, no.
Right. Well, we talked last week about like the Shanae just being so hot that he just can't get over himself. Like,
right.
And the internet agrees. They're like, like he just, and he's getting, and so here's what's interesting is, and this is a thing that I think happens to people is, so you've got boring hot guy and you're so invested in the potential of boring hot guy. Right, because he's cute or because he has a nice job or because he goes to the gym or whatever. But there's nothing that's like happening and yet you stay in it, right? You're staying in it for the potential. And so I'm starting to wonder, like, why at this point, why are these women still there?
Yeah, if we would remove the celebrity factor.
Yes.
Right? The fact that obviously they're on a game show and it's going to do so much for their future life, I think a lot of these women would have just been like, yeah, I'm not really that interested anymore. Or they'd sleep with him once and be like, meh, all right, that's all I needed, thanks.
Yeah.
I think he would probably end up getting, just kind of left in the dust because there's just not a lot there. Like, he hasn't really shown anything. I feel like I don't know him at all. He's just good
all.
looking.
Yeah.
He's just good looking, that's it.
And I don't even really think he's not my type of good looking. So then I'm just like,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they keep saying he's so good looking and he's so sincere. It's like, great. Like, my grandma's sincere. I don't need to.
Right. Exactly. Well, and that's what's in. It's like, so, and that's I think this is a really interesting thing too, that ladies might be doing and they don't realize it is he presents well. Like he can have a conversation. He can do some reflective listening.
Yeah.
like he's kind of a chameleon. So Gaby's silly, he can be silly. So and so is like athletic, he can be athletic. He's sort of like a chameleon, and so what happens is I think when you're constantly trying to be what you think your audience wants you to be, it gets lost in translation, right? You just become like the cute enough, smart, successful woman, but there's no chemistry, or the guy who doesn't get past the second or third or fourth date. And then some of you stay with these people so long, dating them casually, hoping for something to change. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you rob yourself of ever being like really, really like the catch for someone, right? If you're always playing the mirror or being the chameleon and just doing what you're supposed to do to get by, no one's going to fall in love with that person, right?
Yeah.
They may be attracted to them, they may sleep with them, they may go through the motions, but like eventually, it's the passion of someone, it's who they are that you stay in a relationship for, right? And if there's just like nothing there, and you're like, I don't really feel like I even know this person, that they're just like, they're cool, they're fun, but I don't know. It just loses all of the willingness and the wantingness to go deeper, and you just end up losing, like, the attraction fizzles, and it's just like, okay,
yeah,
thanks, see ya.
Yeah, it's that whole thing. Like, I don't really know why it ended. It just sort of faded away, kind of a feeling. They got bored. Yeah. You know what's funny? I don't know if you saw this online, but I thought this was hilarious. They basically were saying, the internet was saying that Clayton is so boring that they had to dress him up with drama. Right? Oh, yeah. They have to 100%. Keep Shanae around. They find like the worst. They're saying like this is like villain level of like, unsurpassed villain, because she's so out there just saying, I don't give a shit about this guy. I just want to win and send. I'm like, when I was watching it, I was like, I knit while I watch it. And I'm like, girl, you are on the wrong game show. Go on Survivor. Like, even her producer interviews, she's like, I sent another girl home. I'm like, that's the wrong show. You're on the wrong show.
Oh man, it is the Shanae Bachelor. That's what they even called it during the show. And yeah, without her, there would be zero interesting about it. And I think they are keeping her around for that reason.
Yeah, and I think some of the people online are just even the biggest fans are sort of like, it's like too much, right? It's like it's not believable. Like it's not entertaining, right? And what's interesting is you and I can't remember these ladies' names, and it's starting to dwindle, and it's because we are not being allowed. It's like a reflection of Clayton, right? Like, we're not really seeing him. We're seeing like job title kind of like highlight level of like, Gaby is funny, Rachel's a pilot, Serena has cool hair, right? Like, like we're getting these top level things, but and this is really interesting too, I think, because there is so much power in that vulnerability. When you take the lead in setting the stage, like, here's who I am from an authentic place, then it allows the people that you're dating to show up that way. So if you're dating a bunch of people and you feel like it's just so casual and on the surface and nothing ever goes anywhere, it's like, well, are you Clayton, right? Are you just keeping it so level that you're not ever really getting to know anyone? So all your people are just, the nickname that you made up for that guy.
Yeah. I think the one person who is really kind of, I was impressed with and who's doing it well is the Olympian.
Yes. Yeah. What is her name? Oh my God. I'll look it up. Carry on.
Yeah. I was really disappointed when she didn't get the rose date. And it's like, come on, she crushed both last two group dates, the group rose date. She like dominated the football game, and then she dominated the roast, and her stand-up was A+.
Yeah.
And, she's like, as a perfect example of what you're talking about, just really showing authentically who she is. And like, nothing there. Like, and maybe I feel like there's definitely some race card stuff going on to maybe make up for other Bachelor seasons, because there's a very high percentage of women of color who are still on. And I'm not sure if that's because he's into that or if because they're like pushing that. But I'm like, why wouldn't, if he's really that attracted to her, he would like give her the rose for that. You know, like, come on.
100%. And we saw this, and we're all about diversity and inclusion, but we saw this last season with Michelle, who was so obviously not into white guys. I mean, she's just not. It's not her thing. Until the end, the guys that she was interested in were her type. She wanted, a black man, right? Like she had a lot of values even around that for herself. And so, yeah, I think Marlena is her name. She's just a cool chick, like super sexy, super strong emotionally. Like, and the thing is, and this is, I think, really important to say, when your like vibe, when your frequency, when your emotionally availability isn't at the level of the great high quality person, you're not going to be attracted to those people. And so I think besides whatever his type is, I just think talk about low self-esteem. I just think he is there for the wrong reasons. He just wants to have sex. He has super low self-esteem. He can't make decisions. He's totally swayed by whatever's going on around him. And Marlena's cool and confident and a badass. And so I just think like vibrationally, they're like totally on a different level. And I think in real life, I don't think Marlena would ever go out with him.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah, because she's so funny. I want to be her friend. I just want to hang out with Marlena.
Yeah, she's awesome. She's Olympian. She's funny. She's cool. I remember during one of the other dates, like she opened up and it was like really genuine feeling. And I was like, yeah, this chick is like, she's awesome.
She's so awesome. And even the way, like, and this is a really great thing too, I think ladies could learn from, is even the way she sort of like told her truth about Shanae, right? She was like, hey, look, for me, and I love the way she like related it to. It was like very high emotional intelligence. She was like, as an athlete, like we both understand, right? Like how you play the game, win or lose, is really important. And so like that was upsetting to me. Like sometimes you lose, and Shanae lost and didn't handle that well. And it wasn't like you're, like the other woman who got voted off was like, Clayton, don't be stupid. Even though that's all we're thinking. But right, she even handled conflict. Marlena handled conflict really well. She set like a boundary about this person and said like this was disappointing in a way that was not demeaning or disrespectful. It was more like, hey, this is a concern to me, without having to say like she's a crazy bitch, which a lot of the other ladies are saying, whether it's true or not. Okay, this is another thing that was going on online. They're saying that we were talking about, is Clayton good in bed? Who we'll never know, but they said that his go-to move is this upper thigh caressing, and he just does it with everyone. And is it creepy? He's like, you tell the vulnerable story, and he like grabs the meat of your inner thigh, and you're just like, ew. So what are your thoughts on, is that creepy, or is he just being affectionate and flirty?
Well, when none of the sort of like alarm bells went off, which I'm usually pretty good at spotting that, because, I oftentimes like have guys go on mock dates, and the way that they touch women is like sometimes so creepy. So I have like a very good creepy radar for touching. And that didn't go off because I think the women are like genuinely attracted to him. At least, I mean, they're making out with him. It's not like he was touching any of them that he hadn't made out with, at least.
Right.
So I feel like, it's maybe a little on the aggressive side, but he could get away with it. However, given the fact that they're like having this, faux vulnerable moment or whatever, like the hand on the inner thigh, probably not the best place to touch. Maybe like holding a hand is a little bit more.
And if a guy does that to you, is he automatically a creep?
I mean, again, it's going to kind of depend on what's happened before that, I think. But if you're a woman and you feel weird about how a guy's touching you, like, it's 100%, like, I would consider that a huge red flag. And especially given that situation, like an inner thigh touch is a very sexual touch.
Yeah.
And that's not really appropriate for talking about my dead cousin story or something.
Right. Yes. Yes. Oh my God. There was Matt James had this whole thing. He was a Bachelor, like, I don't even know when it was anymore, a few seasons ago. And they showed the hometown date with the mom, and he grabbed his mom there. And I was like horrified. You should YouTube it. And I talked to this body language expert, and she was like, well, honestly, if you look at his interacting with his mom over the whole show, he's like super affectionate. And so maybe for them that wasn't weird. But for me, I was just sort of like, I was sort of grossed out. So any other how do you think he handled the roast? Like, do you think he like is a good sport? Do you think he was actually sort of feeling like criticized? What do you think?
If he was feeling criticized, he didn't show it. I think he did a pretty good job of just doing what you should do when you get roasted, just kind of laugh it off.
Yeah.
And I was actually I thought the roast was going to be a huge fail for the show.
Right.
Because, I just thought the women were just going to be total bitches and go after each other, and it wasn't going to be funny. It would just be mean. And it was mean it was Mara and I forget the other girl's name. Mara was mean. The other girl was just funny. And at the end, she's like, so you something, bitch, right?
Right, yeah.
So I thought I felt like the roast on the whole, people handled that pretty well, except for that one incident by Mara. And I thought he handled it pretty well. Not that he really had to do anything except sit there and kind of chuckle. He didn't get on stage and roast anyone. So it's like,
no, he didn't. Yeah. The other really super weird thing was the girl who said some like disparaging, weird humor, negative about him. And then she's like, oh, I want a second chance. And then they bring a microphone.
Oh, my God.
And she's like, you have nice eyes and your dimples are cute. Like, okay, people, pathetic. That is not a compliment. That's not appreciation. Like, does that register anywhere with a guy?
Oh, my God. And why was she standing at a microphone? I thought she was going to sing or do something.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Microphone right there for nothing. It's just him sitting on a couch, her with a microphone for what? And that felt so contrived. And what she said was just the most like surface level, basic, dumbass shit I think I've ever heard, like trying to be packaged in some sort of meaningful wrapping of bullshit. Like, come on. Awful.
Yeah, it's like, so whether you're a guy or a gal, right? Like when you're going to like compliment someone or create connection, it's like, yeah, you have pretty eyes is nice, but like you have nice eyes and I like your dimples. Again, nice, but not going to create connection, not going to create vulnerability, not going to create chemistry in any sort of way.
Not even good in the first 15 seconds of an approach. Like, not even then.
Yes. I mean, yeah, you know how that is. If a guy comes up and he's like, oh, you have really pretty eyes, you're like, I mean, I don't know. I'm like nice to everyone, but I think a lot of people are like, go away. Yeah. So what is your takeaway overall? Like the ladies can learn. I've loved having you on here for 2 weeks. I'm going to actually really miss you so much. So we'll have to get you back. But like, what do you think you take away that ladies can really learn and implement about dating from the episodes from this season? Because I know you've watched the whole season.
Yeah. Well, I hope people take away that this isn't real life and like relationships don't really transpire like this in the real world. And if you're just kind of watching for how fake it feels and how fake a lot of it is, you'll learn a lot just from that.
Yes.
Right? If you're watching those conversations and you're seeing that the vulnerability is contrived and it's just forced, and you're like, that doesn't quite feel right, then you know you're on the right track. Right? So, like, check in with what feels good, what feels bad. And then, I think, like we said, the Olympian, you can watch for her. She's been doing a good job, kind of mirror her energy. And definitely, like, if you have any Shanae energy running, good luck, but you might be great on TV. Like, you'll get a lot of followers, that's for sure.
But you will end up alone. I bet if they do Bachelor in Paradise, which I hope they do, because that's way more fun, Marlena, if she goes on there, she will be the most popular woman. Like, every guy will want to date her. Every guy will want to be with her because she is freaking amazing. And we talked about Michelle last season, who is an athlete. And Chris and I were talking about, like, she's got a lot of friend zone vibes and a lot of masculine energy. And what I'll say about Marlena is she's a full-on Olympic athlete, totally feminine, totally got this softness about her, not like sitting like a dude, not standing like a dude. Yeah. And I think that it's interesting because these are the things that men notice right? That get translated into an impression, whether you like it or not. And so I wanted to get a plug in for that about the whole masculine feminine thing, because I think she's rocking it there too. We all just wanted to date Marlena.
Yeah, I mean, it takes something to be an Olympian. That takes a lot of hard work, dedication. Like, you really have to transform yourself to compete at that level. And usually those people are all, great catches when it comes to real life and dating. And you see some of these other women who, like, they're just not really up to much in their life, or their whole life is just kind of about being on the show. Like, I don't know what Shanae is really up to. I'm guessing nothing, just being hot. And, that shit's going to expire. And there's like,
is going to expire.
You can run that crazy psycho narcissistic energy when you're young and, like, maybe milk some dumbasses for their money or whatever, or get some infamy out of it, but you're not going to end up with a happy sort of lifestyle if that's how you're viewing the world. So that's, I guess, the last thing to think.
It's so true. And you know what's interesting? I was talking to my daughter about this, because I call her Reality Raina, because she watches all reality and reports on it. But the behaviors and some of these things that we see, these ladies are really young, and we're joking about it, right? Like the low self-esteem and the body dysmorphia and not being able to manage conflict and things like that. Yes, it's for a television show, but they were cast for a certain reason, right? Because, they are missing some things that make it hard for them to have the kind of love that they all deserve and what most humans want. And it's like, if you don't deal with this stuff, getting more money, getting more successful, right? Like getting in better shape, getting in whatever. And I think ladies need to realize this, because if you were going to line these women up, you'd be like, oh, that's the feminine ideal of what a man would want. And what I hope people take away is from these last couple episodes is like, all that fucking doesn't matter, because like you have to have authenticity, you have to have emotional intelligence, and you have to be able to communicate properly, right? And so if you're thinking like you're not enough because you're not rich enough, you're not skinny enough, you're not cute enough, all that's bullshit. It doesn't matter in the end. So unless you want a guy like Clayton, which none of us do. Totally. So thank you. You are a genius. Every time I talked about this show this season, I've always come into every podcast being like, oh God, what are we going to talk about? I mean, I don't want to talk about Shanae. And you're a genius. We really helped bring to light some really important things. So now my last question for you, Robbie, is, are you going to continue to watch the show?
Oh my God. I mean, I was hoping to come on another podcast, so I'd have to. If Chris isn't available, let me know. I'd love to do it. But yeah, I'm kind of, at this point, I have to see what happens. And I'm too invested in the characters not to. So
I love it.
Are there?
Too many for this particular gentleman, but probably a good 4, 5 left.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I can do that. No
okay. And maybe what we'll do is we'll have a little trio. We'll bring you back with Chris and we'll sum it up. So keep watching, Robbie Kramer.
You got it.
Ladies, we have big applause. Here the crowds are standing for Robbie Kramer, our new favorite manalist. Thank you for being here. And ladies, whatever you do, life check yourself. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for tuning into today's show. So if being in an intimate relationship in which you feel 100% seen, heard, and accepted by a high caliber man is a priority for you right now, and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit for working with me and my team at Dating with Dignity, here's what I want you to do. Just head over to DWD VIP, that's D as in dating, W, D as in dating, VIP.com, and book a call to speak with my team. We'll get on the phone with you for about 60 minutes, and you'll get crystal clear on what's stopping you from finding true love right now. We'll also take a look at what you want to create, what you want your whole life to look like when you're able to finally be fully expressed as a woman in a healthy relationship with an incredible guy. And if we can help you get from where you are right now to where you want to be, we will show you the fastest path possible that makes sense for you to do that. We help smart, successful women all over the world solve this one missing piece in their life so they can finally have it all. So to see if we can help you do the same thing, head over to dwdvip.com. I'm Marni Batista, and let's talk soon.